when we do take refuge, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today, we should, of course, bring to mind that in front of us is Buddha Shakyamuni, and then various monks and nuns, and then various other Buddhas, such. And the Buddhas are the source of inspiration. The teachings are the actual practice, which is like their medicine for us, and the community is the people that help us with our practice. And although let's say to feel that you have all sentient beings around you, I find it a little complicated personally, even after years. But I am connected with all sentient beings, and that if you have an appreciation of being interdependent with the universe around you, then that certainly would apply. And having just in your mind the idea that I am going to lead the prayer of refuge and for immeasurables with all sentient beings establishes a sense of affinity with all of those sentient beings, so that they are realistic ideas. So, with that thought in mind, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free from closeness to attachment and at distance from hatred. May they abide in equanimity. May I cause them to abide in equanimity. Please, Guru Deva, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to achieve Buddhahood. May they achieve Buddhahood. I myself will cause them to achieve Buddhahood. Please, Guru Dev, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have the happiness and its causes. I myself will cause them to have the happiness and its causes. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from the suffering and the causes of suffering. May they be free from suffering and its cause. I myself will cause them to be free from suffering and its cause. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings never separated from the happiness of higher rebirth and liberation. May they never be separated from these. I myself will cause them to never be separated from these. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able to do this. Yeah, that's good. Stop there. So, this evening we're talking about refuge, and I'm in this. It's the course is called "Be Your Own Therapist," and so I'm not contradicting the traditional Buddhist way of presenting it. In fact, I've memorized it and I know it very well, but I just like to put it in terms that might be more relevant for our culture or our time. But again, I'm certainly there's not the very traditional presentation. For example, if you've done a Kopon course, is very beneficial. So first, it's called the causes of refuge. And in the tradition, it said that the first one is the fear, that you have anxiety or fear of taking a bad rebirth. And actually, in today's day and age, and if we have an idea of future rebirths, yeah, it's scary. In fact, I often think about, okay, if I had any opportunity to choose a place to be reborn, where would I choose? Because you just have to think first off, okay, if I'm born in North America, okay, well, I'll grow up with a mother and a father, whatever it thinks. But then I go to the school system. And in the school system, then there's all of the peer pressure, all of the things, like who are you and what's your social standing and this and that and whatever, are you the prince or princess of the school or are you a nobody, and then of course now there's all of the drugs and all of those things that are going on in the school system and things, and then, it's sort of like, that, and so it's, I find actually, I have some anxiety over taking a rebirth, And it just sort of, boy, I'm going to have to go through all the stuff that I went through as a teenager, or young person, and then finally a teenager. Oh, yeah, I don't really want that. But anyway, so it's an interesting thought. But I think, so those are very definitely motivational forces for taking refuge. But what I think that's really interesting is to go and look at ourselves, for example. Why did we first get involved in Buddhism? If you could go back to like prior to finding it. So maybe, you found some books and they were interesting and such like that. So that would be sort of initial cause. But somewhere in there, it got a little more serious and you actually went and found a Dharma center, you found a teacher, or whatever. And so for me, I often try to encourage people to try to remember their initial motive of why they looked for Buddhism. And why would I stress that or say that that was important is because that's you. That really is you why you're sitting there and wanting to practice and such. I mean, I can remember I was, 18, 19 years old, trying to figure out, the meaning of life, not finding it at all. I mean, I loved reading science fiction and fantasy because it sort of like, it gave me some sort of a greater vision of what life could maybe be like or something. But I really didn't have any meaning to my life. So I ended up liquidating everything I owned and ended up did a good karma, I can say, really. I ended up in India and met Lama Zopa. So really, really fortunate. But I can say my first motive was, I want meaning. I want an answer. I want to know why. And it's not like a big why. I want a meaning, why I wake up in the morning and I sort of know what I'm going to be doing that day. Like, what's the meaning for my life? So the first, I would just put a slightly different idea to the idea, rather than the fear of, let's say, a bad rebirth. Rather than that, to talk about just the I can touch base with the feeling of, I want answers. I want to understand what's going on. And so you could call that an anxiety. You could call that a need, and that is a very powerful initial motive. And so, although we might be, taught about a lot of other things about different motives, I think that like a very solid reason for like why I am going to be sincere and why I'm really going to try hard is that I had these issues, I had these questions, I had these problems in my life, and I wanted a solution for them really badly. So just and the very first one, cause, I like that idea because that's really me looking for an answer to life, the meaning of life. So that's just something to share about in regards to the first of the causes of seeking refuge. And what does refuge mean? It means like it's a place of my security. It's where I can go and I can sort of say, okay, I know who I am in this particular position. It gives me security. It gives me a place to come forth from, to be motivated by, or such like that. So again, the refuge, it means, to have protection. The analogy is often, if it's raining, you go under an umbrella. So the umbrella gives you refuge, gives you support, gives you security. So the same thing. What Buddhist refuge is, it's a place within ourselves that we have a sense of security and stability. Like, yes, there's some crazy stuff happening in the world around me, but at least I know who I am, where I'm coming from. That's my place of security. And again, following the ideas of Lama Zopa, always just said, check up, think about things, really delve into like, why would you want to be practicing? And he always said, like, make the Dharma your own. Meaning is it make it that it becomes, you find your reasons, your motivations. So refuge is, I would love a place of security, stability, clarity, intelligence. That's what I want. That's refuge. Okay. So one reason then is, I had questions and I wanted answers. And Buddhism's starting to give me some pretty good ideas and pretty good answers about things. So, okay, that's point number one about cause. Point number two is faith. And again, I mean, if you're fairly educated in Buddhism, we have three types of faith. There's no such thing as blind faith, but there is admiration, inspiration, or intelligence. And those are the basis for that. And if you do have a chance to study Tibetan, I mean, you don't need to study it a lot, but you can study the Buddhist words. For example, refuge and, spiritual determination. All of these very interesting words. Like the Tibetan language was built around Buddhism. So it's really wonderful. Now, learning how to speak Tibetan. Today, actually, we had a Geshe Genrep or Konchak, I can't remember. He's from Colombia. He just flew into Torreon today. So we have a Tibetan Geshe, and he's giving a class tonight. And I used to be a translator. And so, I spoke Tibetan fluently. But I've been in the middle of Mexico with no Tibetans whatsoever for 20 years. So I'm sorry, I can't speak Tibetan anymore. But when he arrived at the airport, I managed to say, Tashideli Kusudepa Yimbe. I managed to say, how are you and are you well? And then later, because what happens when I try to speak Tibetan, because it happened on occasion, half of it's Spanish. And I don't even know I've done that, because it's just, I'm learning Spanish and my Tibetan is getting pushed aside. But coming back to the reason why you'd want to study Tibetan, just the Dharma words, is because they carry so much flavor. They're so rich. So Cap Drol is to go for protection, go for refuge, go for that. That's the Tibetan word. And in the second thing about the word for like faith, the cause for refuge is having faith. The Tibetan words, what I was getting at, is called yiche, which means a confident mind. And so, again, just studying some of the really sort of basic words and, basic principles from the Tibetan word side. Wow, it's so interesting. It's so rich. So what is faith? There is also, depa, which is it's faith, but the actual other word is yiche, which is a confident mind. So you can be having a confident mind because somebody inspires you. Buddha Shakyamuni, wow, incredible being. He affected the whole of Asia, like mind-boggling, Or you can have admiration because, like such an incredible being and his lifestyle. So both of those are causes. Inspiration, admiration are types of faith. Like I believe in that. But the big one, of course, is intelligence. And if you have intelligence, then you don't really have any problems. You understand why you're practicing. And that is yiche, a confident mind. And so for us as Buddhists, it's really good. Here I'm in a Catholic country, and I say to Catholics that come, because most of the Buddhists that get involved in Buddhism here, inevitably they sort of still, go to the church, and you get in a car and it's always, the kids like that. They do all this stuff. They're, it's because it's part of the culture. But I say, if you study Buddhism, you'll actually improve your practice of Catholicism, because Buddhism is intelligent. It gives you reasons why you practice and stuff. And, again, if we're talking about, Christianity, Jesus Christ is just guru yoga. It's nothing more profound than that, So anyway, there's a lot of ways in studying Buddhism that you can actually have a better understanding and a deep appreciation of other religions. Anyway, coming back to the point, though, second cause of taking refuge is inspiration, admiration, or the intelligence. And you study and you come to some good understanding about things. And if we were to say, what would be the things we understand? Well, it's sort of broken into two things. Nature of reality, the nature of the way the world works, and compassion. Those are the two things that you would use for being an intelligent Buddhist, for having a confident mind. So everything's impermanent. That's the way this is. We all know that. Though, things might last for a couple hundred years if it's sort of made with cement or something. Still, it's going to break down and it's becoming impermanent. Then the second one is that there's things that are not arbitrary. And that one's really, if it's really good to talk about that, because it's not super necessary to believe in past and future lives, but it certainly fleshes out, gives you a broader perspective. But if you do think about, everything in this physical universe has a continuity of causes and circumstances. It's not arbitrary. If something's happening, it's got a cause and circumstance. And even if, you suddenly saw pink elephants, well, it's mostly because you got DTs, because you drink alcohol too much or something, there's a cause and circumstance. So even, weird things have some cause and circumstance. Or even just there's a chemical or a hormonal imbalance and you have some strange things happening. So that's talking internally, but just in the physical universe, there's a continuity of causes and circumstances. And so, wow, I mean, that's realistic. It's not arbitrary. It's not, nonsense and stuff. And the only place it gets a little strange is if you talk about your own mind. But, we have enough from psychology, have a trauma happen when you're a child and you spend the next 40 years figuring out how to deal with it. So there's a continuity of causes and circumstances. May nobody have traumas, but if you do, it's pretty sad. But anyway, so we do have a continuity in consciousness. Also, dynamics of causes and circumstances. Some of them are the way we're brought up, the way our mom and dad interacted with us, the way we went through the educational system and social situations. That's the sort of, it's created who we are now. So again, that's intelligence. So to say, okay, things aren't arbitrary. Things have a continuity. I'm going to put new continuity, new circumstances into myself and such. And that's the constructive way. So things are impermanent. Things are always changing. Good. Well, I can change. Second point. Well, there is a continuity of cause and circumstance. I can put some good causes and circumstances into my existence. And then finally, there's interdependence, which is basically voidness. I can remember when I first took teachings with Geshe Nawang Dargay, who, this is 1971, 1972. It's way back when the Tibetans barely knew what Western people were like. I mean, even I think none of the Tibetans had even been to the West yet. I mean, it was Karmapa, Kalu Rinpoche, and Lama Yeshe. They were pretty much the first Tibetans that made it into the West, and sort of did things. And then finally the Dalai Lama about 77 or 78 or something like that. So point being is that they didn't know our culture, but all of us, I mean, I would say generally we all have at least 12 years of schooling, let alone if we went to college, university, and whatever else. So we're quite well educated. And so when Geshe Dargay first started presenting the voidness, he said, "Oh, it's very difficult. You won't understand it." And you have to, I thought about it in terms of, in Tibet, there was no public school system. If you learned to read and write, it was your aunt or uncle taught you how to do that and stuff, unless you went to a monastery and then you got taught how to read and write. But again, so culture didn't have like universal education, but we did. So when we talk about voidness, it's actually not that complicated, in the basic understanding. All phenomena are interdependent. Nothing's an isolated phenomena, and so that again, it's intelligent. I mean, all we have to do is look at plastic in the world. I mean, it sucks. It's horrible. I mean, the Pacific Ocean is full of, plastic. And thank God somebody's come up with a sort of a way to try to get it out of the ocean. But it's incredible. Well, it's because we're interdependent. We can't just throw stuff away and think it's going to disappear. It doesn't work that way. So again, we have intelligence. And then the big one on that is actually our body. I mean, sitting here listening to me talk right now, we are immersed in the atmosphere. We are like a fish in water, but our medium is very thin. It's the atmosphere. But if I move my hands like this, I mean, I can feel the air getting out of the way because I'm immersed, and there's no gaps in that. It's like a full immersion. My skin is literally breathing. And on top of it, with every breath I take, we know, okay, I mean, again, we're educated. The air comes in, it goes to the tissue of our lungs, and I don't know how it is, but it's magic. But then the oxygen transfers over, and the bad stuff comes out when we exhale, and then it gets into the blood, and then it goes to the heart muscle, and then the heart just pumps, and it puts all that oxygen-rich blood through all of our organs and down to our tissues and stuff like that, and things like that. So really, we're actually a bag under pressure. Inside of us is this pressure. Because all you have to do is cut yourself and the blood starts coming out. Yeah, so we're pressurized. We're a pressurized system immersed in an ocean of atmosphere and such. Well, that's interdependence. And you say, oh, wow, like every breath I take can remind me that I am empty of any self-existence. I am interdependent, 100% to the cells of my body. I am interdependent. So again, that creates intelligence. And that means why we take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha. Because we say, whoa, you're pretty smart. You figured it out. You gave us a good understanding. So the second cause of refuge is inspiration, admiration, and an intelligence. And so what does it give you? Well, it can give you confidence, stability, sense of security. I know who I am, or I know what I'd like to be doing compared to what I used to just do anything. Now I sort of wake up in the morning and I have context for how I'm going to live my life because I have this place I'm coming from, which is educated and intelligent. So it's the second cause of refuge. The third one is compassion. And that one, we all of us, we're well educated. We've all heard, compassion. I mean, I have my shirt, Lama Zopa. I guess you can't see it, but this compassion, it's wonderful. I mean, Lama Zopa is so special for that. He just, wake up in the morning with compassion, eat your breakfast with compassion, breathe with compassion. It's just great. But something that, we actually have, in a way, a nature within us to do something for others. And all you need to do is, I don't know, each of you individually, but for example, if you're in a relationship and you have children, well, when you go to work, because you have to make money, so you go to work, whether it's whatever type of work you do, well, when you think about it, you're actually doing it for family. So you have, without really thinking about it, you have a reason for, or you have a source of what is bodhicitta, doing something for more than yourself. And so, again, you have to be a little careful because, sometimes you say, oh, people are so egocentric, but point is that, that we do have, in a way, if we do something, for example, let's say if even you don't have any children, as you have a pet, you make some money and I can buy some food for my pet. I'm doing something for more than myself. And that's my point. That's all I wanted to bring up is that we do have a sort of an innate way of doing things for more than ourselves. And all you have to do is have people in your life that you care for and love, and it's there. You have that feeling. But again, if, for example, why would you take refuge, or you would like to come from a place of security? Because in the people in my life, whether it's a family people, blood, or just friends people, or people at your work, or just your social situation, I'd like to offer it a little bit better. I'd like to offer something a little better, and that would be then it's the initial sort of movement of love for others, but it definitely can work when you have somebody you love, and that even actually. That applies even if you have a pet, because there's enough of us out there that are single. I don't have any blood children, but when I returned from India, it's very hard to maintain my ordination. I've been a monk for 14 years, so I returned my ordination, and then I married actually an American who'd been in India for 7 years and such, and then she had 2 children, so I adopted the 2 children. I brought them up, and I did that in Canada for 18 years. So point being is that when you do have people in your life that you care about, so that could be, for example, children, but in one way, I don't have blood children. But for example, I have some pet dogs right now. We have 3 little Shih Tzus. Okay, well, I love them. They're dear little creatures, and I can say I really feel love for them. So I'm going to practice Buddhism to have a better quality, and may I help them possibly get a human rebirth, because I'm going to treat them well, and I'm going to treat them with love and things. So they're going to look at me with oh, there's a human. It's not just oh, they're going to feed me, which is true to some extent. But the point is that their admiration of you, the owner, the human being, gives them a cause for being born as a human being. It works that way, because they like human beings. Human beings do nice stuff. If you have let's say a dharma relationship, a good relationship with your pets, Anyway, of course, then move that over to other people. That's what we'd like, to offer something good to other people in our life. So refuge out of love and compassion is I care for some people in my life. I'd like to offer something a little better. That's why I'm taking refuge. That's why I look for an answer. Why does the world work this way? Okay, I figured that out. I'm going to offer that to the people in my life as best as I can. Again, I mean, in Buddhism, we don't evangelize, but we sort of try to live our practice. And if somebody happens to notice that we're a nice person and they say, well, why are you a nice person? You can say, well, I meditate, or I look at Buddhism. So we don't evangelize directly. We just emanate our lifestyle. And if somebody happens to notice, then that's the way we can maybe inspire them to be Buddhist. Anyway, so the third cause of refuge, that is coming from a place of security, stability, and personal clarity, is love. That you would like to be able to offer a more enlightened relationship to the people in your life. And so therefore you practice the Dharma, you do some mindfulness meditation, you try to be peaceful and calm and offer that to the people in your life. And so that then becomes a cause of refuge, is that you work with yourself that way. Okay, so that's the first 3 points of why we would possibly be looking for a point of security, stability, and such, which is our refuge, a place where we can be confident, stable, and secure. Okay, now, something they say which is good is that you shouldn't talk all the time. So I want to open it to questions or commentaries about things, if anybody wants to do something, because that way it's a bit more interactive. And there's maybe something that came to mind that you'd like to share. So I'm just going to open it up, and there's only 4 of us right now. So just turn your mic on and ask a question if you'd like. And if not, I will keep rambling.
I guess I'll go. So, your story about like why you started in the first place is very interesting, because like I thought back to why I first started. Because I knew about Buddhism academically. I teach philosophy, and so I kind of knew the book parts, and that's kind of the entrance point I had originally. And I originally went towards a tradition called Tendai at first when I first practiced, and I kind of look back at why, and I kind of think it kind of played an explanatory role. And only over time did I really develop that further into like my actual practice.
So it gave you a context that gave you meaning.
Yes, that's really what it was. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but that's really what it was.
No, and I agree with you. I mean, I when I was 20 years old, and I want what's it about? I'm unhappy. I'm not happy. I like to be happy. So happy in a realistic way. Thank you. Anyway, there's opportunity to ask a question or share if you'd like, whatever. So sort of the window of opportunity is closed. You can't ask any more questions, you see. And that's actually a good thing to recognize, that sometimes there's this opportunity in front of us and we don't take advantage of it, we don't use it. And so, for example, I mean, I'm not I'm not the Dalai Lama or something, but let's just say, hey, the window of opportunity has got shut. Unless you bang on it, then I'll let you talk. Okay. Anyway, so that's the first thing, refuge. Now, the second thing, of course, then is the objects of refuge. And that's where then, we have the Buddha Dharma Sangha, the jewel of Buddha Dharma Sangha. And so if we look at the jewel of the Buddha, it has 3 qualities. It has all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful. And what I find, because again, I'm in a Catholic country, Mexico, it's so interesting because those are the 3 things they give the definition for God. I mean, so what's the difference from Buddhism and that? And all-knowing, well, we say Buddhas are omniscient, so that's the same one. All-loving, well, that is specific. I don't, I do say, even the Pope Francis now says, God loves gay people. That's a sort of a very ugly way of saying it, but the thing is, so because there's this huge thing about, maybe they're bad people or something like that. It's so ridiculous. Anyway, so the point is that there is this sort of thing that God loves everybody. But, then there's the whole thing of, well, you need to have Jesus Christ in your life. So it's a bit closed-minded, but, that is the religion. If we look at an ultimate being, a ultimate being, this is the ultimate being. There's nothing more than this being, this whether state of consciousness or being. Well, then Buddhism got it down. I mean, whether it's a human, an animal, an insect, any living being, the Buddhas have empathy and love for that being. They like it to be happy, So that's the universal love. So it's great. That's a very nice way in Buddhism to think about it. And because I'm talking to a Catholic sort of audience to some extent, I always try to say, okay, we're talking ultimate being. And an ultimate being, then, okay, omniscient, okay, all religions have that. Loving has to be ultimate. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm only a Democrat, or I'm only a Republican, or I'm only a pan or a pre, here in Mexico. No, you are an ultimate being. So you are for the universal benefit of everybody. And that's something that's quite inspiring. I mean, that nature of that being. So that's point number 2. And then point number 3 is all powerful. And that one's so easy in Buddhism because it just means nothing has more power than the Buddha's mind. Like an enlightened being's mind, male or female Buddha, Tara, Avalokiteshvara, whoever it may be, there's nothing that is more able to affect or influence that, like have more power. And that's the real meaning of power. I mean, I wish, I don't know if I really would want it, but I wish sometimes that I had the ability that, all the bad people in the world, I don't know, would take a rebirth somewhere else or something. I don't know. We have these wishes, like, why can't the world be nice? Why is Putin, invading Ukraine? It's just ridiculous, I mean, all of the suffering and stuff, why? So anyway, so the idea of like, I'd love to be all powerful and to stop him. Okay, that's not going to work very well. Actually, I'll be honest with you. Some years ago, I guess about 12 years ago, in Mexico, we had a really bad situation here in Torreon. It was 2 cartels were fighting for domination in the city of Torreon, and it got really scary. I mean, you could go out at 8 at night, and all the streets were empty, like no cars on the road or anything, because there's really rampant violence everywhere and stuff like that. And so it was bad, and then there was some pretty horrible, executions that happened. So again, this is really sad stuff. And so I got a little bit angry. I thought, wow, like, yeah, I know. I mean, so in my imagination, I sort of had this thing about, well, I'm a pretty good shot with a gun. When I was a teenager, I had a rifle and I could shoot it pretty well. I'd love to be able to, some of these evil people that really cause horrendous pain to another person. Oh, I could shoot him, and finish that sort of cause of suffering. And there's another one. I'll shoot him too, And then I sort of went, okay, Jhampa. So let's say if you did that, well, you maybe could kill 2 or 3 of them if you were even that lucky, And then they're going to start looking for you. So sorry, baby, it ain't going to work, So I went, oh wow, And so that sort of stopped me going in that direction of wanting somehow to revenge or I don't know, purify really horrible people that cause a great deal of suffering. And so then I thought about it and I thought, well, no, okay, if we go through human history, there's always been violence. I mean, whether it's Alexander the Great came down to, on the coast of the Mediterranean, conquered a whole city and sold the whole city as slaves to Egypt. I mean, let alone killing 20,000 people to accomplish that. I mean, that's the sort of stuff that's gone on in history repetitively. So I went, wow. But so what am I and what do I do? Well, if I can be a nice guy, compassionate to these people that are really horrible, I'm opening the door to them that they might change. Because I'm not attacking them. I'm not criticizing them. I mean, I might say, hey, that's not very nice. But the thing is, it depends on what the words you say. I mean, being a skillful bodhisattva. But the point being is that, being a nice person, being compassionate, one day they might sort of go, gee, I really don't like my lifestyle. and you've been nice to me. You didn't criticize me, and you didn't, things. Oh, okay, so then you attract them into your life, and you can influence them and make them better people. I mean, if you think about Milarepa, he killed 34 people. And so he could have been like an evil person, but then he met Marpa, and he also just had a change of heart that he didn't like what he'd done. But the point is that so we could categorize Milarepa as like a narco, a cartel person, and then he's evil. But no, so my point being anyway, that in regards to all powerful, because that we're talking about, all powerful doesn't mean that you can control or do things with other people or make the world a better place by forcing it. No, all powerful is you can control yourself. Nothing has more power than your own ability. That's an enlightened being. We're not quite there yet, but the thing is, at least it gives us the idea. So that is a real being. That is a real, if you were to try to put a intelligent interpretation over an ultimate being, then you could say the ultimate being has this sort of infinite compassion to wait for a sentient being to finally decide it wants to do something differently. And then the Buddhas can maybe manifest something or in some way inspire them or something that they start to change. And wow, that's a being that is worthy of venerating and admiring and being inspired by. So again, I'm a little bit off topic, but no, I'm trying to be realistic that how do we deal with our emotions and feelings? And we have the jewel of the Buddha with all knowing, all powerful, and all loving. So I think that's a very nice, to think of the Buddha like that is really beautiful, that the Buddhas have those qualities of all loving, all knowing, all loving, and full capacity. No limitation on capacity to be a beneficial being. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then, of course, there's more details. There could be the qualities of the Buddha's mind, the qualities of the Buddha's speech, the qualities of the Buddha's body, things like that. But something that I often think about a lot is and I've talked about it over the last two sessions, is like, why would a Buddha, an omniscient state of consciousness, respond to our suffering? Why would, okay, so right now, Buddha Shakyamuni or Tara or whatever is floating around this room, their consciousness is sort of touching me, okay? Because that's omniscient mind, and I'm a Buddhist. I've taken refuge. I've turned my mind in their direction, so they might notice me a little bit more, okay? So what would make them move, you could say, in their omniscient state to care about me? I think it's a really interesting question. It's something that I wanted a good answer for that. And so again, it's a little bit, mystical, or you think, but what you do is you look at and this is actually a point of faith for me, is that the Buddha took 3 countless aeons to become enlightened. Okay, that's like huge span of time. But the point is that the Buddha in every rebirth had a little bit of bodhicitta. And so in every rebirth, over 3 countless aeons, there was a little bit of bodhicitta to be a little bit of a better person, to be of greater benefit, to deal with the situation a bit more constructively, things like that. So that was the Buddha's consciousness. And so I think, wow, that's dedication. I'm inspired by that, So wow, that's dedication. So, but the thing then, and so so let's just take sort of simplistic things. Okay, so you get cancer. Okay, and then you think, okay, well, it's the cause of this, from the Buddhist point of view, is that I have some, in some way I damaged other people's life forces. So therefore I have the effect on my body that my body has cancer, whatever. So there's some karma. Things aren't arbitrary. Okay, so in previous rebirths, the Buddha must have had cancer millions of times, even hundreds of thousands of times, whatever. Okay, but he had bodhicitta. And so although he had cancer, he dealt with it constructively, or as it says in the Guru Puja, it says, may I take all, it says, just as suffering pours down like rain and is always sort of upon us, may I take these circumstances and make them my path. So may I take that I have cancer and make it my path. May I take that I've been divorced and make it my path. May I take a broken heart and make it my path. That's what bodhicitta is. It's like I work with that and I become a better person. And then what you do it for more than yourself. So may I learn how to deal with a broken heart because other people have broken hearts, and may I help them. May I be in some way useful for them. You know, so that over thousands and thousands or millions or whatever rebirths, Buddha Shakyamuni developed bodhicitta to bring whatever circumstance he was in into enlightenment. And you can say the same thing for Tara. So, you know, a female Buddha, she had bodhicitta in all of her different circumstances. So that way, then they know all those sufferings. So when we talk about becoming omniscient, it said that the Buddhas can cognize all their past lives. So that means that they can cognize a life that most likely was pretty similar to who you and I were. You know, being single, being married, in a relationship, having cancer, you know, losing a job, whatever, you know, whatever scenario I can come up with in my life. Well, the Buddha had billions of rebirths, a male or female Buddha. So for sure they had a couple of ones like that, you know, and that becomes the basis of their empathy. That, oh, I've been there. I know what that's all about. So when you think of this omniscient consciousness around you, you have to, they say, embellish it with quality. It's not sort of like, you know, say sort of joke. It's not like the Buddha's Mr. Potato Head. You know, it's sort of like, I am enlightened, you know, and everything is just wonderful, and I'm in peace. No, I mean, you know, Buddha Shakyamuni must have had an incredibly beautiful personality. He affected the whole of Asia. You know, I mean, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, China, Korea, North Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia. I mean, just that takes a pretty charismatic personality. Now, not sort of like charismatic like a rock star, but just sort of the quality of the being. So, wow, you know, really impressive. So, anyway, so. You know, when I think of, for example, the jewel of the Buddha, I want to give me lots of reasons why the Buddha's consciousness would respond to me. Okay, well, this is my logic that I have that, okay, well, the Buddha was, you know, like me, you know, in 10 or 20 of those rebirths. And so he or she, that male or female Buddha, has full conscious access to all of the rebirths that they've ever had. So when their consciousness touches my body or my mind, they immediately understand me empathetically. Hey, I've been there. Oh, it was sort of like, oh, in rebirth 3,285,000, I was there, you know, like that. So, but the point then, it gives you a sense of relationship and sort of connection to the Buddha. And I think that's really powerful. It's something special. It's something important that you feel that you have, you know, a empathetic, compassionate, loving Buddha. And then you can easily apply it to yourself. I mean, for example, let's say you had COVID, or let's say you, you know, at one point, you know, during the 2 years that we were in lockdown, you know, couldn't this and that, at least for most countries. In America, they refused to wear the face mask, but I'm joking with you guys, okay? Anyway, point anyway, so the thing is, so if you had like sometimes a really great suffering, so like, wow, you know, so you go like, oh, that was thing. But instead of like being fearful and rejecting the suffering, you said, whoa, this is painful. Like, wow, I can fully cognize the pain of COVID or the depression of being locked up in my house and not having anybody to be with or something like that, whatever it may be, okay? So then when you get with somebody else who has a similar situation, it's not that difficult to your heart to go to them because you understood it. You didn't reject or have fear over that particular illness. You just said, hey, this is painful. I recognize it's painful. So when somebody else starts telling you that they've had a similar one, you can have like, oh yeah, I understand that. And without, I mean, I think it's just so much easy. So just your heart goes to them a little bit, even though it just depends on how much compassion you have. Your heart goes to them. So if you can recognize that in yourself, then turn around and apply it to an enlightened being, and they touch your consciousness. And how do they do that? They do that with empathy, because of all the rebirths they had as a sentient being or a bodhisattva working towards becoming enlightened. So anyway, so again, we're just talking about the jewel of the Buddha, but I'm encouraging you guys to really think about it in bigger terms and just sort of like, some, omniscient being who's sitting there rather detached, not really being, I guess you suppose I mean fully consciously present, but why would they respond to me? They're in everlasting bliss, Excuse me, my dogs are barking in the background, but anyway, they're suffering from some anxiety of some sort. So if you've ever been anxious, you can have love and compassion for my doggies as they bark, rather than feeling them as an obstacle. Okay. Anyway, so we're getting close to 9 o'clock, and it's like a 1 hour talk. So I covered the causes of refuge, and then we talked about the Buddha and tried to really flesh that out with lots of interesting sort of thoughts. So again, I open it to the window of opportunity is open. If you have questions or thoughts or something, please share them. And I'm just going to shut the door so the dogs don't bark so easily. Okie dokie. So who has a question? I'm patient.
I have one question. So in your presentation, it kind of sounded like the Bodhisattva vows are like earlier than the other vows in a way. Like they're more primordial in a way. Is that true? Or is that like as you practice, it flips, so to speak?
Well, okay. There's a commentary by Aryadeva, I think in 400 verses. He says the beings who understand they are interdependent with the universe spontaneously have love and compassion for others. Okay, so that comes from Aryadeva. So, there there's two commentaries about there are two perspectives that are come up when you understand reality. One is fear. I'm completely vulnerable. I'm naked before the universe. The universe can influence me and affect me, and I'm terrified. That's one of the responses when you understand voidness. And it's said that it's because of a lack of merit, because you don't have a lot of positive energy. I mean, merit's it's not a good word. You don't have a lot of positive energy inside of you. And so therefore, when you suddenly realize that you are open, interdependent, empty of any self-existence, it terrifies you. And you pull back and want to protect yourself. Okay, that's one response. It's because from a lack of a lot of positive energy. If you have a lot of positive energy, and to whatever extent it may be, and you suddenly realize I am interdependent, then comes like, wow, I can affect the world. It's not, the world isn't self-existent. The world can be influenced by a positive feeling and a positive action on my part. And that's because you have positive energy, positive feelings. So in regards to your question, it again depends on the merit or the positive energy, the positive feelings you have. But yeah, I mean, bodhicitta, it could say it in one way has a potentiality of being innately part of us. Just depends on our positive feelings and stuff, and then our appreciation of reality. So. But in one way, we are Mahayana school. We are Mahayana Buddhist. So even though I have a student that says, "Oh, bodhisattvas are so incredible. I can't be anything like that." I think, "Oh God, why did you do that?" you just shot yourself in the foot. Like you just ruined anything by saying it's too much. It's like they're so good and I'm not good enough. That's like, well, why do we do that to ourselves? There's no measuring stick for bodhicitta. So even if you have the smallest feeling of, may I do this for the benefit of somebody else, that's bodhicitta. I mean, maybe it's not universal bodhicitta like a, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, but it's the start of bodhicitta. As Trichang Rinpoche, one of the Dalai Lama's tutors, said in a teaching that I attended, he said, the first place you should really practice your bodhicitta is with your family, because you have feelings about them, and that's constructive karma. That's good. So anyway, the point being is that even the smallest thing of like, as we say, there's the admiring bodhicitta and the engaged bodhicitta. Like, I'd love to go to, a beautiful beach resort. Sounds nice. That's like wishing bodhicitta. Oh, hey, there's this beautiful beach resort that's got really nice things. I'm going to go. I'm going to get the bus ticket or get the airplane ticket. That's engaged bodhicitta. Now, of course, enlightenment's a lot better than going to a beach resort. But the point is that the idea in that example comes from Shantideva is very, very appropriate. It's like, I admire people who have a big heart, bodhicitta. Wow, that's wishing bodhicitta. And then, hey, I'm going to start doing it a little bit, even a little bit. I'm going to start doing it. That's engaged bodhicitta. Okay. Anyway, so I'm sort of answering your question a bit. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so just to do a resume of review of what we talked about. The three principal causes of refuge are some form of anxiety, that you don't want some suffering, that you have admiration, inspiration, or faith, or intelligence, or then finally you have love and compassion. Those could be three recognized ways that you work to establish a place of great confidence and stability within yourself, refuge. Then we talked about the jewel of the Buddha. We talked about the three principal qualities of an enlightened male or female Buddha, that is all-knowing, all-loving, and all or capable. Okay, and then we talked about around that a little bit. So that was what I wanted to talk about tonight. Next week, maybe we can continue a little bit with the jewel of the Dharma, and then the Sangha. It's not as much fun as talking about the Buddha, but hey, it's good stuff. Okay. So any last minute questions or thoughts or commentaries? Everyone's happy. Hi, Barbara. Okay, so that's it again, guys. Let's dedicate, because everyone's still in silence. So again, we can say the prayers, but it's always good to know, just go to your feelings. Like feelings are karma, and sometimes just a word, like, I'll give a perfect example. Dalai Lama says love and compassion. And it's like, whoa, because he has, you could say realization, but what it means, he has feelings with that. Feelings and understandings and stuff. And so when he says those words, it's like, wow. When we say it, love and compassion, it has something maybe a little bit, but not things. So that's why it's really important to recognize our feelings are an important part of our karma, our karmic accumulation. So, for example, okay, we just we've been online for an hour. So it brings to mind, okay, well, I made the time available. Maybe I had to go and put some other things aside. So, okay, I take that I made the decision, I made the effort. And then I attended for this 1 hour, this talk. Okay, so that's good. And I thought about some things. Okay, so I take that. And I take all of that and I dedicate it to a more enlightened life. Again, and the word enlightened life, okay, make it have quality. I mean, it's sharing, it's generous, it's patient, it has good principles or ethics. That's my enlightened life. So I dedicate this evening to a more enlightened life. And I offer that for the benefit of all. Okay, so there you go. I mean, didn't mean to cut off your feelings too fast, but okay. So that's it, guys. Again, I mean, nobody asked questions, so I'm sorry, there's no questions. So the window of opportunity is shut. But good. Okay, so lots of love.